Okay, so let's go back in time. We're talking nearly 4,000 years ago. It's a story about one man whose personal journey of faith, and really of reason, ended up shaping the world as we know it. This is the story of Abraham, and it takes us all the way from the ancient city of Ur to the Valley of Mecca. Yeah, it sounds a bit like a riddle, right? But the answer to that question is really the story of this one man. A star, a fire, and a desert spring. You'll see how each of these becomes a huge turning point in his search for truth. A search that was tested, tried, and in the end, literally changed the course of history. So our story kicks off, not with some grand declaration, but actually with a question. We're starting in a world full of idols, and at the center of it is a young man who just dared to ask, is there something more real out there? So picture this. We're in the ancient Sumerian city of Ur, and a young Abraham is watching everyone around him, even his own father, bowing down to these statues carved out of wood and stone. But here's the thing. Where they all saw gods, he just saw, well, the work of human hands. You have to understand, in a world where gods were actual physical things you could see and touch, just thinking that was a pretty radical act. So, he's looking for answers that he just isn't finding in the statues of Ur. So he looks up to the heavens, and there it is, a beautiful, shining star. And for a moment, he thinks maybe this is it. Could this be the eternal, powerful truth he's been searching for? But then the sun comes up, and the star just fades away. And with it, so does Abraham's hope in it. But what's so cool is that his disappointment immediately turns into this powerful, logical conclusion. He thinks to himself, I love not things that set. I mean, it's just pure reason, right? An eternal God can't just disappear. But he doesn't give up. His search continues. And then he sees the moon rising, even bigger and brighter than the star was. And that hope comes flooding back. He thinks, okay, this has got to be my Lord. Surely this majestic light is the answer. But of course, just like the star, the moon set too, and seeing this pattern, things appearing and then disappearing, it really cemented his belief. He realized the true creator has to be permanent, not something that just comes and goes. And that's a huge shift. He understands that he can't just figure this out by watching things. He needs guidance from the real Lord, whoever that is. So through this amazing process of just thinking, using reason and logic, Abraham arrives at this absolutely revolutionary idea. The one true God wasn't a star or the moon or a statue. It was the unseen creator of all of it, the heavens, the earth, everything. I mean, this was a total game changer for human thought, moving from worshiping what you can see to believing in an unseen creator. But, figuring out the truth is one thing. Defending it, that's a whole other story. And for Abraham, his new faith was about to face, well, a literal trial by fire. Yeah, this wasn't just some private belief he kept to himself anymore. He takes action. In this incredibly bold move, he goes into the temple and smashes all the idols his people were worshiping. Well, all except the biggest one. He leaves that one standing and puts the axe right in its hand. So naturally, the townspeople are furious, and they confront him. But Abraham has this brilliant, logical trap all set up. He basically says, it wasn't me. The big one did it. Why don't you just ask him if he can even speak? It's such a clever way to force them to admit that these things they worship have no power at all. Well, they didn't really respond with reason. They responded with rage. And for challenging their entire way of life, the punishment was simple and brutal: to be burnt to death. But just as the flames are rising, something incredible happens. A divine command comes down. O fire, be coolness and peace for Abraham. And just like that, the fire that was meant to be his execution becomes a miracle, his salvation for everyone to see. You'd think a miracle like that would convince everybody, right? But it didn't. In a really heartbreaking twist, Abraham's own father, Azar, couldn't accept it. He rejected Abraham's message and told him to leave the city and never come back. So he survived the fire, but he lost his home and his family. But this exile, it wasn't the end, not by a long shot. In fact, it was the beginning of a much larger divine plan, a plan that would take Abraham's personal journey and use it to shape human history for thousands of years. And this is where things get really epic. From this one man, two major family lines begin. With his wife Hagar, he has his son Ishmael, who's the ancestor of the Prophet Muhammad. And with his wife Sarah, he has his son Isaac, the ancestor of prophets like Moses and Jesus. So you can see how he becomes the central shared patriarch for three of the world's major religions. Now, this divine plan required another just unbelievable test of faith. Abraham was commanded to take Hagar and their baby son Ishmael on a long journey and leave them in this completely empty, barren desert valley, a place called Makkah, which we now know as Makkah. And right there, in that desolate valley, a spiritual center for the entire world was about to be born. But its story doesn't start with an army or a king. It starts with a mother's desperate search for water and another incredible miracle. So there she is, Hagar, all alone in this scorching desert with her baby. She's desperate. She runs back and forth 7 times between 2 small hills called Safa and Marwa, just frantically looking for water. And that very act of faith and determination is now a central part of the Hajj pilgrimage. Millions of people reenact her search every single year. And then, the miracle happens. A spring of water, the well of Zamzam, bubbles up right from the desert floor. It saves Hagar and Ishmael for sure, but it does so much more. It becomes a source of life that allows a whole community to grow in a place that was once completely empty. Okay, so fast forward a few years. Abraham comes back, and what was an empty valley is now a thriving community. He and his son Ishmael are given a huge task, to rebuild the Kaaba. Now, this is believed to be the very first house built on earth for the worship of the one God. It was meant to be a physical center point, kind of like a spiritual compass for all believers. And as they're building, as they're laying the foundations, they're not just thinking about their own time. They're praying for the future. They ask God, our Lord, and raise up in their midst a messenger from among them who shall recite unto them thy revelations. They were praying for a future prophet from their family line who would guide people and make sure this truth they'd found would never get lost again. So the Kaaba is finished, and then Abraham gets one last major command to make a call to all of mankind, to invite everyone from every generation to come to make a pilgrimage to this holy house. Now, the story goes that Abraham actually wondered, how can my voice, just one man's voice, reach across the entire world and through all of time? And yet here we are. Every single year, millions of people travel to Mecca, literally answering that very call from 4,000 years ago. It's just an incredible testament to this legacy. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? How does a 4,000-year-old call still echo so powerfully today?